I stood behind the barn, phone in hand, heart pounding like a war drum, as I hit send on the video. My wife's face was on screen, lips parted, whispering, "Bob gave me the baby I always wanted." That was the moment. No coming back. No mercy. I'd sent the clip to my lawyer, the judge, and to Bob's pregnant wife. She had no idea. And as I stepped inside, she greeted me with that fake, plastic smile she wore every time she lied. She thought I was still the fool who brought her coffee every morning, who kissed her forehead before bed, who ignored the late-night texts and cold shoulders. "Kyle," she purred. "We need to talk." I stared at her. I wanted to scream, to throw something. But I didn't. "Sure, Emily," I said. "What's on your mind?" She walked over slowly, like she was about to give me a surprise gift. "I'm leaving you," she said. "Bob and I were engaged now." She smiled like she expected me to fall to my knees. "And guess what?" she added. "Your parents are hosting our engagement party next week. They said you were always too soft. Bob's a real man." I didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at her. She thought she had the upper hand, thought she'd won. She didn't know that 2 days ago, I found the hidden phone she kept in the guest room drawer. The one with the videos, the texts, the voice memos. She didn't know I'd been watching, listening to her say the nastiest things about me while wrapped in my best friend's arms. She didn't know I recorded her confession last night, when she finally admitted everything, thinking I'd still beg her to stay. But most of all, she didn't know this wasn't her story anymore. It was mine, and I was about to burn it all down. The moment she walked away, tossing her perfect little lie over her shoulder like it was nothing, I stood there, frozen. I felt like a man watching his house burn down from the front lawn, flames licking through windows, smoke pouring out, and everyone walking by blaming me for the fire. But that wasn't the moment I discovered the affair. No, that happened 3 weeks ago, and I remember it like it just happened. It started with a charger. Emily always kept her phone plugged in on the nightstand beside our bed, never let it drop below 80%. But that morning, I saw her scrambling to grab her purse and accidentally pull out a second phone. Not her iPhone, a cheap Android, one I'd never seen before. She paused, barely a second, before stuffing it back inside and forcing a smile. "Old work phone," she said. "Forgot I still had it." I didn't question it, but I didn't forget either. That night, when she was in the shower, I found it again, tucked under the stack of towels in the linen closet, wrapped in an old scarf. It wasn't locked. What I saw made my stomach twist. Hundreds of messages, videos, voice notes, most of them from Bob. "He doesn't touch you like I do. He's too soft. Always was. You were made for me, Em." And her replies, "Kyle's a loser. I hate when he kisses me goodnight. I imagine it's you. Can't wait until he sees your baby's face and realizes." I dropped the phone. My hands shook, but I didn't cry. I couldn't. There was no room for sadness, only rage. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I did what any man with a plan would do. I started documenting. I filmed the screen, copied the texts, saved every voice note, every filthy clip of them in our bed, on our couch, even in my goddamn truck. Then I dug deeper. I followed her one afternoon after she claimed she was visiting her sister. Instead, she met Bob at a diner outside town, sat in his lap like a teenager, kissed him like a wife. And then, they drove back to a motel. I didn't follow them in. I didn't need to. The next day, I called a lawyer. Quietly, carefully. "Get everything," I told her. "I don't want this woman walking away with a single photo frame." We started building the case. But I wanted more than legal justice. I wanted poetic revenge. So I got in touch with Sarah, Bob's wife. She was 7 months pregnant. Thought her marriage was rock solid. She had no idea the man rubbing her feet at night was sneaking around on her with my wife. When I sent her the video, silence. Then, 30 minutes later, she called. "I want to help you destroy them," she said. So we teamed up. She gave me dates, access to Bob's calendar, everything I needed to build a timeline. I gave her all the footage I'd gathered. Together, we created a file so thick and damning, no court could ignore it. But here's the part that twisted the knife in deeper. My parents knew. Sarah found emails. My mother had been texting Bob, encouraging the relationship, calling me a disappointment, saying Emily deserved better. They were helping plan the engagement party, even offered to pay for the catering. That's when I broke. Not cried, not screamed. I broke. Something inside me snapped in a way I didn't know it could. That night, I watched one last video. Emily lying in bed, whispering into Bob's ear. He'll never leave me. He's too weak, too scared. He's got nothing without me. She was wrong. I wasn't scared. I was ready. So when she smiled at me in the kitchen and told me she was leaving, I just smiled back, because she had no clue what was coming. Emily had always been good at faking things, smiles, tears, even love. But nothing prepared her for the moment I sat her down across from me in the living room and told her, "We need to talk." She raised an eyebrow, not even looking up from her phone. "Can it wait? Bob's picking me up in 20. I didn't blink. "It really can't." She finally looked up, and I saw it. The flicker of confusion, quickly hidden behind her usual arrogance. She tucked her phone into her pocket and folded her arms. "This about the divorce? You're finally signing the papers?" I smiled, slow and cold. "Not quite." I stood, reached under the coffee table, and pulled out a manila envelope. She laughed. "What? You wrote me a letter like some heartbroken loser." I dropped the envelope in her lap. "Go ahead. Open it." She rolled her eyes, tore it open, and started flipping through the pages. Her face changed by the second. Text messages, screenshots, printed stills from the videos. And then, the last page. A copy of the video thumbnail. Her half-naked, straddling Bob, in my truck. "Where the hell did you get this?" Her voice was sharp now. "No more jokes. No more games. Found your burner phone. Guess you're not as slick as you think." Her jaw tightened. "You went through my stuff?" I laughed bitterly. "You're sleeping with my best friend, and you're mad I opened a drawer?" She stood up fast, like she wanted to yell, but I wasn't finished. "I sent everything to Sarah." The blood drained from her face. "And to your boss. Hope the HR policy about public image still stands." She blinked. "You wouldn't." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "I already did." Her mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, she looked cornered. But I wasn't done. "You told him I couldn't give you a baby. That I was weak." I could feel my own voice rising. "You looked me in the eye every day, kissed me goodnight, while you were out with him. The man who held my kid at his christening." She didn't deny it. Just stared. "You're disgusting," I said. "And I stayed quiet because I wanted to see how far you'd go. And damn, you outdid yourself." She tried to switch tactics. "Kyle, you've been distant for years. You don't even look at me like you used to." I needed more. I needed to feel wanted. I shook my head. "You needed attention. And when you couldn't get it from me, you went to the one person who had the most to lose." That's when she changed. "You think you're going to come out of this clean?" she hissed. "You're nothing, Kyle. You work on a damn farm. Bob makes real money. He makes me feel like a woman. And guess what? When I walk out that door, I'm taking half." I stepped back, pulled out my phone, and tapped play. Her voice filled the room from the speaker. "He's too stupid to figure it out. I'll just keep milking him until the baby's born, then I'm gone. Bob says we can sue for alimony after the divorce if I play it right." She lunged forward, trying to snatch the phone from my hand, but I was quicker. "Sent this to my lawyer, too," I said calmly. "And to the judge. Good luck milking anyone now." Her breathing was shallow, face flushed red with rage. "You're a vindictive little—" "Careful," I warned, stepping toward the door. "This house, it's in my name. Bought it before we were married. Everything in it. Documented. You'll leave here with your clothes and nothing else." She didn't move, just stared at me, like a predator realizing it had walked into the wrong cage. And for the first time in years, I saw her clearly. Not as the woman I married, not even as the one who betrayed me, but as someone I never really knew at all. I opened the door. "Bob's waiting, right?" She stood frozen for a second, then grabbed her purse and walked out without a word. And I watched her go. But it wasn't over yet. It was just beginning. The door clicked shut behind her, and for the first time in weeks, the house was silent. Not awkward silent. Not tension silent. It was the silence of something finally breaking free. I stood there for a full minute, just breathing. She was gone. Not emotionally. She'd left emotionally a long time ago. But now she was physically gone. And in that moment, it hit me. I wasn't devastated. I wasn't on the floor crying. I wasn't screaming at the ceiling. I was standing, tall and steady, finally free of the venom that had poisoned my home for years. But the damage she left behind, that was still smoldering. I walked into the kitchen. Her coffee cup was still on the table, lipstick on the rim. A knife in the back would have hurt less than seeing that shade of red, knowing it wasn't worn for me. I threw the cup into the trash and grabbed my phone. There were new messages. One from Sarah. Sarah, just told Bob I'm filing. He begged. I laughed. I smiled. That was a win. One small, satisfying win in a war that had barely begun. Another text from my lawyer. Lawyer, paperwork filed. I'll call you in the morning. You were right. This is going to bury her. I locked the screen and dropped the phone on the counter. I should have felt victorious. But what I felt was something different. Something heavier. Grief. Not for her. God, no. Not for the woman she turned out to be. But for the man I used to be before she broke me. For the love I thought was real. For the 20 years I'll never get back. I walked down the hallway to our bedroom, my bedroom now, and looked around. Everything still smelled like her. Her perfume. Her lotion. Her lies. The bed was still unmade. The sheets crumpled from the last night we slept in it together. I tore them off, threw them in the garbage. Then I started emptying drawers. Makeup, jewelry, clothes. Every piece of her had to go. By the time I was done, there was a black trash bag by the door stuffed with the shell of someone I no longer knew. I should have stopped there, but I didn't. I opened the closet and reached up onto the top shelf, pulling down the old shoebox I hadn't touched in years. Inside was everything. Our wedding photo, the anniversary cards, the ultrasound pictures of the baby we never had. I stared at that photo of us on our wedding day. God, I looked like a damn fool. So happy. So sure. I tore it in half. Then again. And again. Until it was confetti in my hands. I dumped the rest of the box into the fireplace. Lit a match. Watched it all burn. As the flames danced, I made a vow to myself. Not to sink. Not to spiral. Not to let her betrayal define who I was. She'd taken enough already. She didn't get to keep my spirit. She didn't get to break the man she thought was too soft to fight back. She thought I'd crumble. That I'd beg. That I'd cry and plead like some broken puppet. But instead, I was getting stronger. Every ember of that fire was another piece of her I didn't have to carry anymore. I sat back on the couch, letting the heat from the fireplace wash over me, and I started to plan. Because if Emily thought she'd seen the worst of me, she was dead wrong. She started a war. And I was just getting warmed up. There's something that changes inside a man when he's been betrayed that deeply. It's like a switch flips, and what's left isn't rage. It's clarity. That next morning, I woke up before sunrise. Not because I couldn't sleep, but because I didn't want to waste a single second. Emily thought the worst thing I could do was move on. She had no idea the worst thing I could do was pay attention. I started with the finances. She had no clue that years ago, back when I still trusted her, I added a clause to the prenup. One that triggered full financial review if infidelity was proven. Thanks to her little self-filmed home videos, I had that proof. Crystal clear. The clause kicked in immediately. Bank accounts? Frozen. Joint credit cards? Cancelled. Her car? Leased under my name. I called the dealership and told them to tow it from Bob's driveway. She texted me later that morning. Emily, where the hell is my car? I replied with 2 words. Read the contract. Then I blocked her. Next came the nuclear option. I posted a short, polite update on Facebook. To friends and family, after discovering ongoing infidelity between my wife and my lifelong best friend, I filed for divorce. Thank you for respecting my privacy during this time. Attached was a screenshot of Bob and Emily, faces clear, timestamp included. Just enough to burn their reputations without a single angry word from me. It exploded. The phone didn't stop ringing. My inbox flooded. Half the town was in shock. The other half, not so surprised. Turns out, Bob had a history. Emily wasn't his first affair. Just the one dumb enough to get recorded. Sarah, meanwhile, was on fire. She filed her own lawsuit, took Bob for every dollar she could legally touch, and moved back to her parents' place 2 states over. But not before mailing me a bottle of whiskey with a note that read, "To Kyle, the only man in this mess who acted like one." I didn't drink it. Not yet. I was saving it for the day this was all officially behind me. Then, just when I thought I'd seen every angle, I got the letter, mailed directly to my house. No return address. Inside was a printed email chain between Emily and my own mother, dated just 2 weeks before the truth came out. "Don't worry," my mother had written. "Kyle always folds under pressure. He won't fight you. Just be patient. You'll have everything soon." That one that hurt. My own mother, helping plan Emily's exit strategy, talking about me like I was some harmless idiot standing in the way of her daughter-in-law's fairy tale. I didn't cry. I didn't even get angry. I just made a list of names. People who were done. Family. Friends, mutuals, anyone who knew and stayed silent. They were out of my life for good. Emily had scorched the earth, but I wasn't going to sit in the ashes. I was going to rebuild. But not before I made damn sure she felt everything she tried to put me through. You see, betrayal teaches you a lot. About people, about trust, about pain, but most of all about power. And when someone shows you who they really are, you believe them, and you bury them with it. 2 weeks had passed since I'd kicked her out, and not a single day went by without someone asking, "How are you holding up?" I gave the same answer every time. Better than I've ever been. And I wasn't lying. The weirdest part about betrayal is what it leaves behind when the shock fades. Clarity. Focus. This raw, primal hunger to become untouchable. So that's what I worked on. No more dragging my feet around the farm like a ghost. I woke up at 5, ran 5 miles before sunrise, hit the weights in the barn like I was training for war. I started eating clean, ditched the beer, and finally canceled that damn streaming service we used to waste hours on. I turned the guest room into an office and filled it with plans, real estate portfolios, investment blueprints, business books I used to buy and never open. I wasn't just going to survive. I was going to thrive. Revenge had its place, and I took mine. But this was about resurrection. About proving to myself that the best version of me wasn't lost in those 20 wasted years. He'd just been buried, under compromise, comfort, and lies. People started noticing. Neighbors dropped by just to say they were proud. My buddy Darren brought over a bottle of bourbon and said, "You're glowing, bro. Like, divorce god energy. Whatever you're doing, don't stop." Even Sarah reached out. "Sarah, just wanted to say I saw your last post. You look like you finally exhaled." I replied with a simple truth. "Feels like I can finally breathe." But Emily couldn't stand it. I knew because she started poking around again. First, through mutual friends. Little questions disguised as small talk. "How's Kyle really doing? Is he seeing anyone? Did he ever mention me?" Then came the texts. Blocked numbers. Voicemails. One night, I listened to one just out of curiosity. Her voice, sweet and desperate. "I made a mistake, Kyle. Bob isn't who I thought he was. Please, can we talk?" I laughed so hard I nearly dropped the phone. She thought I was her backup plan. She thought I'd wait in the shadows like a loyal little mutt until her fantasy crumbled. Wrong. She didn't know I was already halfway into something new. Her name was Leah. She was a veterinarian who helped with my dog's surgery a few months back. Smart. Kind. Strong. Not the flashy type. Real. Raw. Honest. We started slow. Coffee. Conversation. She never pried, never pushed. But she listened. And when she looked at me, I didn't feel broken. I felt seen. One night, we sat on my back porch watching the stars. She asked, "You think you'll ever trust again?" I thought for a moment, then said, "Only the ones who earn it." She smiled. "That's fair." We didn't kiss that night. Didn't need to. It wasn't about replacing Emily. It was about remembering who I was before I gave everything to someone who gave me nothing back. And damn, it felt good. I wasn't looking for love. I was looking for peace. And for the first time in years, I could feel it rising in my chest like sunrise over the fields. Sure, I still had court dates ahead. Still had paperwork, lawyers, and mess to clean up. But now I had something Emily could never touch again. My freedom. Not just legal freedom. Emotional freedom. Freedom from manipulation. From guilt. From waking up every day wondering if I was enough. Now I knew, I always was. She just didn't deserve me. Some people settle for closure. I wanted consequences. See, Emily always played the long game. She didn't just cheat. She invested in betrayal. She made it efficient, rehearsed. She didn't want to break my heart. She wanted to replace me, erase me. But she never planned for the version of me who wouldn't just walk away. She never imagined I'd fight fire with precision. The court hearing was set for 9 a.m. Thursday. She walked in late, wearing white. Yeah, white. As if she were the grieving widow of a man she hadn't already buried with every lie she ever told. Her lawyer, some arrogant pretty boy in an overpriced suit, whispered something in her ear. She smiled. Not at me, through me. Like I was invisible. Like she still believed she'd win. Then my lawyer handed the judge a USB drive. "Your Honor," she said calmly, "what you're about to see is directly relevant to the division of assets, as well as the plaintiff's request for spousal support." Emily's smile wavered. The courtroom was quiet. Too quiet. The bailiff plugged the drive into a monitor, and then, There she was, Emily, clear as day, in our bedroom, with Bob, laughing, mocking, saying everything. Kyle's so stupid. I could burn the house down and he'd thank me for the warmth. Just be patient, Bob. When the baby's born, I'll play the mental health card, and Kyle will hand over the farm himself. Every jaw in that courtroom dropped, except mine. Emily didn't blink. She didn't cry. She just froze. The judge stared at her, silent for a long beat. Then he looked at her lawyer. Any comments, counselor? The guy cleared his throat. We were not aware of this footage, Your Honor. Clearly, the judge said, unimpressed. By the end of that hearing, Emily walked out with nothing. No spousal support. No share of the farm. No claim to my accounts. The clause in the prenup, plus the video evidence, crushed her like a fly under a hammer. She stood outside the courthouse afterward, sunglasses on, trying to act unbothered. But I saw her hands shaking. She approached me in the parking lot, probably hoping I'd show her the smallest sliver of softness. You didn't have to humiliate me, she snapped. That was low. I shrugged. You were the one who filmed it. She glared. I made one mistake. No. I interrupted, stepping closer. You made a lifetime of them. And now, you get to live with the consequences. I turned to walk away, but then I paused. You should know, I said over my shoulder. Bob's ex is suing you for emotional damages. Seems she had a miscarriage right after watching your video. Emily gasped, but I didn't look back. I got in my truck, started the engine, and pulled away from everything I used to know. That night, back at the farm, I opened that bottle of whiskey Sarah gave me, sat on the porch, the sky wide open above me, and I toasted. To peace. To truth. To survival. Then I picked up my phone and texted Leah. Kyle, court's done. Want to come watch the sunset? Leah, be there in 20. And when she showed up, barefoot and glowing, carrying 2 mugs of hot coffee, I realized something. I didn't just win. I healed. And no matter how deep the cut, how dirty the betrayal, or how public the shame, I came out cleaner than ever. There's a certain kind of silence that only comes after the storm. Not the kind that feels empty, but the kind that feels earned. That's what I heard that night. Sitting on the porch, Leah curled up beside me, the stars quietly blinking overhead like nothing in the universe had ever gone wrong. It had been 6 months since I kicked Emily out. 3 months since the court hearing. 1 month since the divorce papers were officially stamped and sealed. And somehow, I wasn't bitter. Not anymore. I'd gone through every stage. Shock, rage, grief, vengeance. I'd watched the woman I loved morph into a stranger. I'd seen the best friend I trusted fall lower than I thought possible. I'd buried an entire chapter of my life in flames. And somehow, I walked out on the other side stronger. And now? Now I knew exactly who I was. I was a man who rebuilt himself from ashes. I was a man who stopped apologizing for being too loyal, too patient, too blind. And I was finally free. People still ask me how I didn't lose my mind, how I didn't snap, how I kept calm when everything around me was burning. And the answer is simple. I made a choice. I chose not to let her define me. Because if you let betrayal change you into something dark, they win. Emily wanted me weak. She wanted me bitter. She wanted me so emotionally gutted that I'd beg her to come back. Instead, I found my backbone. And if there's one thing I'd tell any man who finds himself in the same hell I walked through, it's this. Let the betrayal sharpen you, not shatter you. When someone lies to you like that, when they look you in the eye every day and smile while stabbing you in the back, it says nothing about you. It says everything about them. And yeah, it'll hurt like hell. You'll question your worth. You'll play every moment back in your head, trying to figure out where you went wrong. But here's the truth. You didn't go wrong. They did. They chose deception. They chose destruction. You just believed in love. And there's no shame in that. But once you see the truth, don't ignore it. Face it. Confront it. And then walk away like the fire didn't touch you. Because that's what scares them most. Not your rage, not your sadness, but your ability to rise. The Emily I knew is gone. The version of myself who needed her? Gone too. Now I wake up with purpose. I work harder, live cleaner, and love smarter. Leah and I aren't rushing anything. She's not a rebound. She's not a replacement. She's just real. And every time she smiles at me like I'm not broken, I believe it a little more. Sometimes I still hear from mutuals. Emily's living in a cheap apartment now. Bob left her 3 weeks after the court case. Apparently, he couldn't handle the drama. Classic. She's tried dating again, But word travels fast in small towns. No one trusts a woman who brags about tricking her husband and stealing someone else's man. Funny how karma works. But me? I sleep well. I eat better. I live free. And when I look in the mirror, I don't see a fool. I see a man who walked through betrayal and came out invincible. So, to anyone who's ever been where I was, lost, betrayed, heart torn open, remember this. They might have fooled you. They might have broken your trust. But they didn't break you. Not unless you let them. And you? You're stronger than you think. You just haven't been pushed far enough yet to see it.